Hey there, superstar. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to find your inner voice amidst all the noise of the world around us. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about why it's so important to find your inner voice and listen to it, and then some of the challenges that we generally run into as we're doing this work. And then finally, I'll share with you some of the tried and true methodologies that I use myself when I need to slow down, check in, and listen to what's really going on. Having a well-developed inner voice can help you make better decisions, identify problems earlier, tackle challenges more effectively. There are so many benefits to getting in touch with your own inner voice. I'll tell you quickly a little bit about my story. I spent many years so busy, working so hard and overwhelmed that I really wasn't connected to my inner voice, to the point where a few years ago, about 8 years ago, I found myself 2.5 years into a relationship that when I finally did slow down and listen to my inner voice, I realized had been pretty much wrong for me all along. And so if I had developed my inner voice earlier, if I'd learned how to listen to it and take it seriously and notice the red flags along the way, I could have saved myself a lot of heartache and a lot of heartbreak even. So no regrets, because that's what's led me here to be able to share this video with you. And so I believe that everything happens for a reason, and hopefully I can save you from some of that heartache and heartbreak that I went through. And of course, this applies not just to personal relationships like romantic ones, like the one that I was in, but also to business. I've also had the experience of working with a client that wasn't a great fit, or recognizing that something felt off in a relationship, but not really diving into what's really going on here. And so these skills that I'm going to share with you in this video can really help you to discern what's going on and what you need to do about it. Now, one of the biggest challenges in the way of getting in touch with our inner voice is that we're so busy, that we fill every second of every day with work, with tasks, with to-dos, and we don't even slow down enough to be still and listen. So that's one of the biggest problems. And then another problem that's sort of related to that problem and even deeper than it is that sometimes it's not just that we're so busy, but it's that we deep down choose to be so busy because we actually don't want to face the things that would come up if we did slow down long enough to listen. So these are pretty complicated issues. If you find yourself, like I did and sometimes still do, numbing out from feelings by eating, shopping, playing video games on your phone, or drinking, or any number of ways that we can take our focus out of what's actually going on in our life, then you might find that you have a lot of situations simultaneously that need addressing. That's what happened to me when I finally slowed down, and it wasn't by choice, by the way. I was forced to slow down. I got a health diagnosis, and my doctor was like, "You need to stop." And it was then that I finally slowed down long enough to realize that my whole life was full of these situations, these bad agreements, these uncomfortable conversations that needed to be had, because I hadn't ever slowed down long enough to listen deeply to what my inner voice was telling me and to actually do something about it. So the solution to that is to, as you might have guessed, to slow down, to make space, and to listen. And I don't just mean one time. You need to start with one time, but ultimately this is about an ongoing practice of developing your inner voice. It doesn't happen necessarily overnight. Some of us have more access to it than others. Some of us have been asleep longer. Some of us have been ignoring it and numbing it out in more ways. So everybody's journey is different. But what I can tell you for sure is that you're going to need to make space and give yourself some grace to slow down. Now, before I get into how to tap into your inner voice, I do want to talk about what it is. Maybe a little bit theoretically at first, and then we'll dive into how it shows up. Your inner voice is like the part of you that knows better than you. You can call it your higher self, your best self. It's a version of you that's very attuned, very aware, very tapped in. Some people might even think it's your soul, right? It's a part of you that is fully aware of everything that's going on in your life and in the world. So it's like an expanded self is another way that you might want to refer to it. Now, the thing about it is your expanded self, like I said earlier, needs space and it needs time and grace in order to show up. And a lot of times we're in our contracted self. We're in our day-to-day, like wake up in the morning, slap on the alarm, grab our coffee, like go, go, go. Our expanded self is there witnessing it, but we're not present to it and we're sort of detached or separated from it. So your inner voice comes from that expanded self. Your inner voice is the part of you that's seeing everything and like, whoa, something's not right here. But your expanded self doesn't operate well in the day-to-day, like concrete world. It needs to be invited to the table and it needs to have a time and a place in which to enter, and you need to be able to slow down and make space for it. And then it might show up like a little voice in your head, like do this, don't do that, this is a problem. Or it might show up as a sensation in the body. As I've slowed down and I've started tapping into this part of me, I've noticed that my inner voice shows up for me like a chill up my neck. And when I feel the chill up my neck, I'm like, okay, wait, slow down. Wait, listen. Like, what is this? What's that feeling? You know? And sometimes it could be usually it's an exciting thing, like I've nailed something or I'm on the right track. And then sometimes also my inner voice shows up as something in the pit of my stomach or in my chest. And that's usually a different sensation. It's more like a watch out, be careful, something's not right here. Lots of different ways it can show up, but the way to determine what your way is to follow step one, which I'm going to get into in a moment. But before I do, I want to invite you to like this video, to subscribe to my channel, and maybe even shoot me a comment below so I can know how this is landing for you. Let's talk about how to do this. So step one is just creating space to slow down and be still and listen. And so what that looks like, it can be a lot of different ways to do that. My recommendation is to just carve out 10 to 20 minutes every single morning, first thing in the morning when you wake up, maybe even in bed, but not laying down, perhaps sitting up and just checking in, like really feeling, for me, hand on heart really helps me to tap in, to breathe into that hand and just to really connect to my heart. Now, this might sound cheesy, but I'm going to tell you that there's science that backs this up. We have science now that tells us that the heart has neurons. Neurons, the things you're supposed to find in the brain, the thing we only thought existed in the brain. We actually have about 40,000 of them in our heart. So our heart it thinks in its own way, which is amazing that we say things like, I know this by heart, right? Like we have a sense that our heart knows things. And it really does. So starting to develop the relationship with that organ that connects to, through the blood flow, every single part of your body. Connecting to that slowly every morning, 10 to 20 minutes, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth as if breathing through a straw. And I do have videos on how to meditate, so you can check those out as well. We can link to them below in the notes. And just slowing down and be still and listen. And from that listening, something will arise. Now, you'll find your mind probably going in a million different directions, and that's okay. That's what the mind does, just saying to the mind, I'll come back to you later. Just right now, we're slowing down and we're listening to the heart. And just practicing that and coming all the way back, coming back to the heart, back to the heart. And there's a lot of different ways that you can meditate. I highly recommend it as step one, foundational, starting to develop that relationship with yourself. Number two, stop filling your life with busyness. Busyness is an addiction. It's a scourge, and it prevents you from tapping into your inner voice. So one way to do that is to check out some of my videos on creating standards and boundaries and managing your time. And another is to set aside periods throughout the day where you just slow down and listen, even if it's just a minute or 30 seconds to just check in and remember, okay, I don't need to fill every waking moment with busyness, which leads me to number three. One of the reasons that we fill our lives with busyness is that we're trying to not face things that we don't want to face, uncomfortable things. And so the third thing that is not easy to practice, but is life-changing, is to practice being with your discomfort. Whether that discomfort is boredom, and you're always looking to find a Netflix or a game or a person to talk to fill the boredom because you don't like to feel bored, or whether you don't like to feel disliked or judged or rejected, and so you try to people please, whatever you're trying to fill your life with to get your needs met, start to be with the emotions underneath that. What's the discomfort you're afraid of feeling? What's the fear? And really start to be with those uncomfortable emotions. I know it sounds like it's completely separate from this topic of tapping into your inner voice, but your inner voice comes through when you're being truthful with your own self. If your inner voice can't trust you to be honest with yourself, and it can't trust you to not go off and like fill your life with busyness and try to escape all your emotions, your inner voice is not going to tell you what you need to know. So you want to create a relationship with your inner voice of trustability where it's like, okay, I know you're listening to me, so I will speak now. And the way to do that is to practice getting uncomfortable and being with your discomfort. I hope that was helpful for you. If you'd like to learn more about the work that I do with my clients, I work with entrepreneurs, speakers, authors who are building and growing purpose-driven, heart-centered, joyful, aligned, and lucrative businesses. You can check out my work at superstaractivator.com. And if working with me speaks to you, you can even find a way to set up time with me on my calendar. I look forward to meeting you.